We've all seen the movie The Matrix. It was interesting and fun on the big screen of the TV, but has it become a bit too real in your own life? Are you seeing glitches in the Matrix and trying to figure out what's happening? Have you been told that you've been tricked and that you need to fight against what they've done to you? The deception. Whether you're just beginning to notice, or if you've been searching for a more peaceful and congruent way to live without battling them, you're in the right place. I'm Ken, and I'll be joined by Eliza and Raina Stella. Let's explore together on the Liberty Ark. All right, welcome back to the Liberty Ark Podcast. I'm Ken, and I'm here with Eliza and Raina Stella. And we're going to be having kind of a more general discussion today and just kind of working through some slides rather than having a full reading and then talking about it as we usually do. This will be a little bit different approach just because of how the reading is written for this round. But we're dealing with a book called The Great International Heist by Rebecca and Jonathan Rodrigues. We've been having some fun working through this, and we're on episode 18. How are you guys doing this evening?
I am doing really good. Grateful to be here again with you and with Eliza.
Eliza, how are you?
Doing great. And again, I always look forward to hanging out together.
Okay, so I'm going to just hand it over to you to do some reading, and we can pop in here and have some discussion if we feel it's appropriate, depending on what you're reading.
Okay, the timeline, episode 18, the timeline of bondage. This timeline is not an exhaustive overview, but rather focuses on those events which most immediately shape the current condition of widespread bondage and control. It's placed here for context, but not all of it will be covered in this work.
So, Raina Stella, you look like you had something to say about that.
Yeah, so I want to understand, of course, we are in the year 2025. I wanted to understand, why is it important, and of course, we'll see the dates of the timeline in a second. Why is it so important to go back so far relating to this path and material, right, that we're reading? That's what I would love to understand and ask you guys, like, why is it so important to go that far back?
What are your thoughts, Eliza?
To me, it's important because so many people think that this is just a modern concept, number one, and that putting this in place has just been in the last few years, that it hasn't built on a plan that's been happening for a long time. So I think it's important.
Okay. So the timeline of bondage, that's kind of an interesting phrase. And for folks that haven't listened to the previous podcast, they may be kind of wondering what we're talking about, because you don't see a lot of people running around with chains on their hands and, bound up. So we're talking more about virtual bondage, effectively, where you're controlled, but it's not evident or obvious. There's been times in history when, slavery was there and people were more physically bound and so forth. Now we have theoretic freedoms, but that doesn't mean you're really free to do or say what you want. And that's done through law primarily. And it's not accidental. It's very interesting to watch how over very, very long periods, not just in one generation, but very, very long periods, things are placed in an order to graduate people through from one type of bondage to another and to maintain control primarily without people even knowing they're in bondage and not truly free.
Now, would you say also that some of the events that we'll be reading through on the timeline, some of them still are in effect today? Is that also the reasoning behind making sure we're aware of it?
Well, most
to
of
reference back?
Most of them today have an impact from what was done before, but that particular thing may not still be in effect, but it was necessary to make the next step, basically.
Gotcha. So gradually, what's taking place today, it has been in the works for a while.
Like boiling a frog, yeah. I think everybody's familiar with that process. And I don't know how true that actually is. I don't know that frogs don't jump out of things when they warm up a little bit. But the concept is if you make rapid changes, people are aware of it and they tend to fight back. But if you do things very slowly, they don't notice them. And what's usually done too is they'll make a push and then they'll back off, but not back to where they were before. So let's say they're trying to take you to 10. Well, if they just go from 0 to 10 immediately, everybody's going to notice it. So they'll take you to 3, and then everybody starts pushing back a little bit. So they don't bring you back clear to 0 where you were. They'll bring you back to 2, and everybody will go, "Oh, that's so much better than 3 was."
Gotcha.
Right, and so they're comfortable at a level they wouldn't have taken before. But now there's no pushback.
Well said.
Got it. Makes total sense as to why we'll get into this timeline of bondage.
Yeah. So I'm going to take it to the next screen. Is that all right?
Perfect.
Of course.
We're going way back when.
Yes. So 753 BCE to 453 CE, 1453 CE. Roman civil law evolves into the law merchant and maritime law, as well as influencing English common law. These systems would lay the groundwork for the Uniform Commercial Code, the UCC, used today to regulate commerce and control the population.
So we're talking way back when, and that BCE and CE is just a different way of saying BC and AD. So we're talking at about 1,500 years, right? Is that even more than that? Yeah. So a long period of time where Roman civil law, which was codes and regulations in Rome, and basically Rome commanded the whole world. So the whole world was pretty much under that legal system. And then that evolved into, or over time changed into, law of the merchant or maritime law, because commerce mainly was done on the seas. Movement of goods and service, or goods and so forth around the world, was done on the water, and it had to have its own type of law. And then that merged in more to English common law. And now our commercial system is primarily governed through the Universal Commercial Code, or Uniform Commercial Code, which each state in the U.S. has. They're a little bit different state to state, but basically it exists throughout, and really, by different names, it exists throughout the world.
So would you say then that all of these laws, right, Roman civil to law merchant, maritime, and so forth, it's all commercial law? And if so, what does that have to do with control the population?
You go ahead and say what you think.
What I'm seeing here is what it's doing. It's saying for over 2,000 years, in order to participate in commerce, you actually had to, there were rules in place that regulated how you were allowed to participate in it. You know, you had to be like licenses, etc. But that went all the way back to not just anyone could participate, but you had to belong to the club, basically some sort of bondage or prerequisites in order to participate.
I think that's a good explanation. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now we're going to go up to 1302, which was within that same time range as before, but slightly before the end of it.
So here we go, 1302. Issuance of the papal bull Unum Sanctum by Pope Boniface VIII, declaring supremacy over all land, flesh, and souls, thus asserting papal dominion over secular rulers and establishing the authority of the Pope over all temporal matters.
Now, that's an interesting one, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. That's
well,
scary.
We started with commerce, and now it looks like we're talking religion.
As if they're two different things, right? Yeah, I think that's the point, right? You nailed it.
And exactly. And we're looking at let's have rules to participate in commerce, but were we also recognizing that it seems to me an overstep, but yet it was claimed to have also dominion over our bodies and our souls, not just whether or not we can go shopping, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. Okay.
All right, so let's go to the next one.
Okay, 1519. Hernando Cortez arrives in Mexico, marking the beginning of the Western Roman law expansion and conquest and colonization of the Americas. Then on to 1603, James VI of Scotland becomes James I of England, initiating the establishment of the New World in America with Jamestown and Virginia.
So basically, when they arrived in the New World, they pretty much brought with them what they already had. They just
which was the commerce and the religion.
Just brought it along with them.
Yeah, those same claims of dominion. Regardless of who was there, like this is mine, and this is mine, and these are the rules.
Gotcha.
Interesting
wording, colonization of the Americas.
Yeah, I looked at that too. It's like a nice way to say it. 1624, the original charter of the Virginia Company Corporation is revoked and becomes a Royal Crown Colony Corporation. 1680s, the Virginia Company is granted the right to establish administrative courts, claim land, coin money, declare war and peace, and enter into treaties. Sounds like business.
Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like, isn't it? And we don't usually think of it that way at all. We don't think of governments as being businesses, but they are. Especially
going so far back. That seems to be like, and I myself thought, well, that's pretty much a modern construct. And it's like, well, since when are governments businesses? But this goes way back.
We're talking the way it's worded, right? The original charter was revoked. So we're talking a company? We're talking like the Virginia Company's original charter was revoked in back in 1624. Are these companies again, we are talking commerce, but companies would get revoked and becomes a Royal Crown Colony Corporation. So we're talking companies, corporations here, equivalent to government, or the corporations ran the territory, or
I'm going to ask the ChatGPT to define that a little bit better, and we can see what they say, because that's a transition that's important to understand, I think.
Yeah, it's like today when you have one company corporate charter, and that is then canceled and then transferred or taken over by another corporation. You either have a merger or a takeover, etc. But it sounds like governments of the people to me.
Yeah, because you even go, as we're waiting for ChatGPT to give us the info, we go into the 1680s, and it's also talking about establishing, the courts and the money, and I don't know. It's definitely bringing us to 2025, right? For sure. I would love it. I would love to definitely understand the concept behind those.
Let me read about 3 paragraphs. I mean, it's a bit of reading, but I think this is a transition in understanding that's probably worthwhile. And this is coming from ChatGPT, so it's going to have kind of its own tweak, right? So you don't believe everything it says, but the historical stuff might be somewhat true. In 1624, the English crown formally revoked the charter. So the crown is the one that did it, revoked the charter, which would be a business charter, right, of the Virginia Company, ending its experiment as a joint stock corporate colony.
Jeez.
So it was a joint stock corporate colony. For nearly 2 decades, the Virginia Company had overseen the settlement at Jamestown. So there was a corporation overseeing the settlement at Jamestown. I mean, that stuff's got to be funded, right? It's funded by investors who expected profits from the trade, land, and resources in the New World. However, internal mismanagement, repeated conflicts within the indigenous nations, disease, food shortages, and disappointing financial returns led to increasing criticism. A particularly devastating blow came when the Powhatan, I guess is how it's read, uprising of 1622, in which hundreds of colonists were killed. This event, coupled with mounting deaths and political infighting, gave King James I justification to dissolve the company's charter through legal proceedings in the Court of King's Bench. Once the charter was revoked, Virginia was transformed from a privately managed corporate venture into Royal Crown Colony. This shift meant that the governance of Virginia passed directly under the authority of the English monarch, represented locally by a royal governor appointed by the crown. This new structure centralized decision-making. There's always movement towards centralization, isn't there? Interesting. And allowed the crown to exert more control over colonial policy, defense, and trade. It also marked a significant turning point in the English colonial model. Rather than relying solely on private companies to settle and govern overseas territories, the monarchy began to expand direct imperial administration, laying the groundwork for a more standardized colonial system. The establishment of Virginia as a royal crown colony carried profound legal and economic implications. The Colonial Assembly, which had first convened in 1619, continued under the new structure, creating an early hybrid of royal oversight and local representative governance. Economically, tobacco had become the colony's lifeblood, and under royal control, the crown sought to stabilize and profit from this lucrative trade by regulating exports and securing labor supplies, initially through indentured servitude and later through African slavery. Politically, the revocation of the charter signaled other colonies and investors that the crown ultimately held supreme authority over overseas ventures. This precedent influenced how later colonies were structured, marking a transition from corporate colonization to a more centralized imperial model that would shape the future of the British Empire in North America.
Interesting. Wow. It's all, and that in the 1680s, despite that revocation of the Virginia Company, it looks like they're still using the name, even though now it's a Crown Corporation, Crown Colony Corporation.
And actually gave them rights to do all kinds of fun things.
Right, under that name, kind of like a DBA, still doing business as Virginia Company, but we, the Crown, are granting you the right, because we've now claimed the land. And No matter whose it is.
So now we have
towers.
the Pope with control over your body and soul, and the crown in control of finances and land and all your resources.
Yeah, and in that whole read that you did there, Ken, all I heard was control and profits.
That's what it was, isn't it?
Control and profits,
and
which to this day.
People get brainwashed into thinking governments are watching out for you. That's the fake on the surface, while they get control and profits.
Watching out for us. Watching out for us to see how much more profit they can make off of us.
That's exactly right.
I was going to say, we just watching you, not for you.
All right, let's head to the next one here.
Thanks for that info there, Ken.
You're welcome.
Excellent. 1783, the Treaty of Paris establishes peace between the Crown and the United States, with George III recognized as the Prince Elector and Arch Treasurer of both the Holy Roman Empire and the United States of America. Okay. 1787, the Constitution for the United States of America was created.
And in general, treaties were used in general to hold countries or territories accountable. They are usually established for that.
There are agreements between sovereign countries, I think that's how I would word it.
Gotcha. Okay.
But what's curious here is, and I read this all the time. There was really never a separation from the British Empire.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and this says that still here's a treaty, but the treasurer of the United States of America is still the Crown.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless in 1787 that we do have a constitution for the United States of America, there's someone else that is that we're reporting to, which is still the Crown.
And I'm sorry to ask. Oh, go ahead.
And that same person is hooked up with the Holy Roman Empire.
Absolutely. Which goes up to the initial claim by the Pope over initially all the land of the world, and then the bodies and souls.
Mm-hmm.
And if I may ask, on this specific slide here, when it does have peace between the Crown and the United States, on the 1787 breakdown, it now names the Constitution for the United States of America was created. Is that two different United States, or are they talking the same? I'm thinking it's two different things just because of the year.
I don't know. I wouldn't be able to define the specific time frame. I would look at it more as a general time where you have these colonies over here that are growing and expanding and having communication back and forth and so forth. I don't know that there was a specific category called the United States of America in 1783. I'm not sure when exactly that literal name appeared.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I think there's an evolution that just because you have a corporation mandating things doesn't mean it is exercising the claims over the men and women, the people.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the evolution. The Constitution was for basically the people, the rights of the people. And as we evolve, that's where the claim is coming in, is not only for the within the corporation over the land, etc., but now they're going to start dipping their toe into the rights over the people themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. So then we begin reading about commerce and then religion, and now we're on this slide and it's bringing in, I read it as the Crown and George III, like king, right? Like king equivalent to maybe one person ruling per se. Am I looking at this incorrectly when I do see the Crown and George III?
I think it's more. Oh, go ahead.
There's lots of discussion, and I haven't gone deep into it. I've heard bits and pieces from historians that basically define that what we got taught in school isn't actually what happened. Let's put it that way. Yeah. And the Crown was and continues to be much more involved at an ownership and control level than we were taught in school. I think the whole idea that we just beat the Crown didn't actually happen that way. And there's always, with all these wars, there's money being borrowed and used in order to do these things. And so then the side that borrowed the money to do the war has to pay off the loans afterwards. And that creates all kinds of treaties and negotiations and stuff in order to keep from defaulting on those.
Yeah, and I think
most of us didn't get taught any of that in school. Yeah, no, most of us didn't get told any of that in school.
And none of this. But I think in here, it's like the Crown and George III, sort of as, it's not the man, it's the corporate soul. It's the position of king that is commensurate with the Crown having the control. And I think this is sort of presenting, as we were talking about, Ken mentioned the boiling the frog. That the claim by the Vatican years ago was over all the people and bodies and souls. The claim was way back, but having people accept that you have this claim, this is where we have the Constitution, which is sort of a contract. It's an agreement that is with the people. Okay. And we have to slowly introduce the fact that the claim will eventually be over the people, not for the people. Because in that, they were feisty back then, and we have got some feisty people now. But, no one's going to go for that quickly. They had just thought that they had earned their freedoms. Like you said, Ken, 3 steps forward had been taken. And then 1 step back, because 3 steps forward was just too much, too fast.
Gotcha.
This is an important one.
Yeah. 1863. Lieber Code, also known as General Orders Number 100, was a set of instructions for the Union Army that outlined the conduct of soldiers, rules of engagement, and treatment of prisoners of war and civilians. It is considered one of the earliest codifications of the laws of war.
Now, that whole concept of laws of war is interesting to me, because there are international laws that govern what's allowed during war. It's like war is a game, and it's got rules, and the countries agree to play by the rules while they kill each other. Well, they don't kill each other. They kill our sons and daughters. And steal our assets in the process. And both sides of every war get funded by the same bankers. So there's lots and lots of value in war. And as things have progressed, it's gotten even more so, because if you know a war is coming up because you're going to create it, no matter whose side you're on, go invest in stock in the companies that create tools for war. And you're guaranteed to make a whole bunch of money. And don't think that doesn't happen. What's that?
Yeah, and the rebuilding, but I think it's decided ahead of time which side wins, and that brings to bear for those that had really never understood the saying of all wars are bankers' wars. That was the explanation. So thank you.
And as awful as it sounds, but it seems like they're incentivized to have wars. Bottom line, they have an incentive.
Hugely, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, again, the word profit is all over that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's super sad that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, as we'll see, unless we stay at war with each other, like peace, there's no profitability in peace,
Mm-hmm.
but the rights and protections change during times of peace versus the overstep that can happen during times of war.
Yep.
So keep us at war.
Yep.
Let me understand that correctly, though, Eliza. It's during war that's when they implement more.
Because people are
Like,
willing to accept it for the theoretic protection.
Right. Okay.
Exactly.
In time of war.
Mm-hmm.
And then in peace, they really can't implement anything because everything's going fine and smooth.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Like, we don't need your protection. We're cool.
Got it. And so there's also not only incentives, but it's done with intention, right? To, I guess, where we say a problem is created, but a solution also is in place for the problem that was created.
Which was the reason the problem was created. to be able to implement the solution.
Gotcha.
and to scare the population into accepting that solution.
Scare, force.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
1866. The Civil Rights Act of 1866 was enacted by Congress. Was the first United States federal law to define citizenship and establish the civil body within the federal jurisdiction. 1871. The Act of February 21st establishes a municipal government for Washington, D.C., creating the United States, Inc.
That one we could spend hours on, but I don't think we want to do that for tonight. But that's well worth people digging into. That one in 1871, isn't that, what's the name of that? What's the word for it? There's a specific name for that. I can't remember what it was. But anyway, that was a big deal when Washington, D.C., a sovereign region basically was created within the United States. But it's not a state. It has a completely different arrangement.
Right. And from there, when we could spend hours on that, from there has been created what is called the federal overlay, the powers of Washington, D.C., creating an overlay to all of the land to take control of those territories and lands.
While having people think they own them.
Right. Importantly. 1873 to 1875. The Judicature Acts in England merged law and equity, greatly influencing the U.S. legal system. 1899. The Hague Convention defines the rules of war on land, including the status of belligerents, enemies of the state.
Yeah, so that the Lieber Code was kind of the beginning of those laws of governance over what happens when a country goes in and takes over another country in war. What are the rules of engagement for that? And then the Hague Convention established that further. And as we go through this later on, we'll go deeper into the impact that had and how that affects us now. Probably won't talk about that tonight so much, but that'll be part of future discussions.
Right. Importantly, and I think this is where we're bringing up the term belligerents or enemies of the state. We always assume that has to do with, we say enemy belligerents, people who or the invaders, but have to be treated fairly, etc. But that's not us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're here and at peace. How could that include us?
Yeah. And back then it didn't.
Right. That's why I'm just setting the stage of exactly. And that's important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So at that point in time, we weren't considered belligerents or enemies of the state because we're here on the homeland, and this is talking about out there
Foreign
someplace.
invaders, right.
Mm-hmm.
Or foreign invaders on the land, who are not friendlies.
Right.
Okay, we have to address that.
Right, sure.
For peace, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the big one. 1933, the United States goes into bankruptcy on March 9th, leading to the establishment of the Emergency Banking Relief Act and the perpetual administration of the bankruptcy and all bankrupt entities underneath it. 1944, Bretton Woods Agreement establishes the U.S. dollar as the global reserve currency, extending the U.S. bankruptcy system worldwide.
Boy, I think some people will have some awareness of both of these, but not a full understanding of it. It's kind of amazing how many people don't know anything about the 1933 situation. And that's when all of the gold was retrieved from the population and taken over by the government. They were reimbursed, but there was a specific value attributed when the gold was purchased from the people by the government. And then, what was it? Short time, I can't remember exactly how long, not very long at all, the government increased the theoretic value of the gold against the dollar, which wasn't the fake dollar that we have today. It was actually supported by gold, but the government had to have our gold to make it work.
Right.
So you're saying they first took our gold away
and said, "Here's this piece of paper."
Yep. And they actually
you guys trade this back and forth.
Gotcha.
But it's supported by actual gold that we have, is what the government was saying at the time. Go ahead.
Got it. And to clarify, though, Ken, I'm sorry, to clarify, though, that piece of paper they gave us for the gold that we turned in, you're saying that they gave it to us at a certain value, and then shortly after, they increased.
Changed the value. Mm-hmm.
Changed the value.
Because it wasn't based on a market rate. It was based on whatever they set the number at. And it was like $20 and change per ounce of gold when they gave the money to us in order to give them the gold. And it was different back then because gold was registered back then. Everybody had gold. And so you didn't want to just keep it in your basement, right? And somebody could come in with a gun and take it. So since it was so prevalent at the time, most people had it in safe deposit boxes with banks and so forth. And it was noted and registered so that if it disappeared, the bank could be held accountable for it. And insurance companies would insure it also. Now, like if you have gold in your house, you can't put on that on a list for your insurance company. They won't insure it.
My understanding, I'm so sorry, Eliza, I keep interrupting. My understanding on this specific 1933 Emergency Banking Relief Act, it is so important that we read and dig into it and really fully understand what took place, because to this day, that impacts us today.
Yeah, and there was another sneaky little deal that happened leading up to it that's not on this list, but it's an important one. And that is, you had the Lieber Code, and then what was the other one?
Trading with the enemy is the one I can think of.
That's 1917. That's the one I'm saying. Saying that got snuck in there. But there was another one on here. I can't remember which
in 1933, they amended the 1917 Trading with the Enemy Act.
Hague Convention was another step toward that. And then 1917, which is not on here, they did the Trading with the Enemy Act, which was basically an update of the earlier one, the Hague, or not the Hague, the Lieber Code.
The Lieber Code. And then in 1930, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but that one specifically said that it didn't apply to financial transactions and so forth of citizens of the United States.
Which one? I'm sorry. Which one?
The 1917 Trading with the Enemy Act.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Specifically said, this is not calling American citizens belligerents. Doesn't apply to us. It was to protect us, not to apply to us, right? But then in 1933, they updated that with one sentence, basically. They changed one component of it, which now did not exclude American citizens from being belligerents or enemy combatants. And it put us in a perpetual state of emergency. In other words,
Right.
you've heard a lot in the news, if you've been listening at all, over the last several years, one state of emergency after another. More recently, created by theoretic health emergencies. But what happens?
War on drugs, the health, all of
Yes.
this, anything titled, they have to keep us at war because there are different powers that apply.
Yes, perfect.
So the 1933, that the update of that Trading with the Enemy Act, that we are now enemy. Okay, the powers over the enemy are significantly different than those that have non-belligerents, non-enemy.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing that happened here in 1933 is that when they took the gold, they are also saying that in giving us the paper, the people could no longer redeem that paper for gold.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? They actually abrogated that gold clause. Now, at this time, that ability to go to the United States, the people could not, have that redeemed for gold, even though it was backed by gold. But international, other countries holding treasury notes could still redeem for gold. And we'll get to that point.
Yep.
Because there was a big thing that happens where, the United States said, we really don't think we want to do that either for other countries.
We were kidding.
Yeah, we're just kidding. We've abrogated that too.
And during that time, it was literally illegal for Americans to own gold.
Yes.
That lasted from 33 till 74. You could not own gold. I mean, they didn't come and knock your door down and take what you had under your pillow. But again, back then, it was registered. Most gold was registered. So the government had access to most of it and put like a $10,000 fine on if you didn't. Wasn't it $10,000? If they found that you hadn't turned in your gold?
So
But it was the
voluntarily, we had to
people-
go drop it off.
Yeah, voluntarily.
Right.
It's kind of like when countries do the voluntary gun thing,
The little guy held their gold at banks and safe deposit boxes. The wealthy who held a lot of gold had things privately vaulted and retained it because they realized that this mandate, if we really get into what a mandate is, it's not law. It was a mandate to turn in your gold. And so most of the gold was not turned in. It just impoverished the small guy.
Again, so it goes back to they added a fine if you kept the gold in your home. It was registered, therefore they knew you had it in your home.
Well, not what's in your home usually wasn't. Most people didn't keep it in their home. I mean, large amounts, let's put it that way.
Gotcha.
Everybody thought safe deposit boxes were safe. Right? And then it would be registered with the bank that it's sitting in there in the safe deposit box. Because if it disappeared and it wasn't registered, there wouldn't be any way to know it disappeared. Right? So it was the setup was so that they could come in and know who has the gold and take it from you.
Would it be equivalent then to today if we look at how you explained it, Eliza, that the average people, we pretty much turned it in, right? Because we didn't know otherwise to set it up in a private vault. So is it equivalent to like public trust, private trust? Like, is that what you're relating this to on the rich or the wealthy having it in a private vault, therefore they were able to retain it?
Not right. They're not. It's. I think what's important to know is that term register. When we register something, we're actually turning over legal title. Okay, so when you register to the banks had legal title to your stuff. And when the mandate came out to turn in the gold, they had legal title to it and said, here. So here you are, not knowing that registration meant they have a legal title. So those in the know and generally holding larger quantities of gold, which would be the wealthy, would privately vault things, have it not registered to somebody else, but remained with complete title. And that's a big subject we could get into all day.
Yeah, the same kind of thing we watched happened up in Canada a few years back, where the government got irritated with some truckers and they shut down their crypto and took it.
And bank accounts, no?
Yes, bank accounts too.
Regular bank accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's a general deposit. When you deposit money in a bank, you're giving them legal title if they're paying interest on the money. I mean, this is a deep rabbit hole we could go down.
Yes.
But what it means to give up your title to something, it takes a lot of education. It took me a long time to really wrap my head around what the heck am I really doing? And I'm still learning.
And though it doesn't say it on the slide here, but it took place, as you guys were explaining, when you say in 1933, we also were classified, I guess the word is classified, as belligerents and enemies of the state.
The update to the Trading with the Enemy Act that occurred in the Emergency Banking Relief Act.
Gotcha.
Turned us into enemy combatants.
Gotcha. So would you say that because by default we are classified that way, belligerents, enemies of the state, is that why when we do get approached by authority, policemen, law enforcement, and so forth, that's the way they're trained to look at us by default? We're belligerents, enemies, and that's why we're treated so poorly when approached? Like there's no respect pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I think that depends on the individual area and the people in control. I don't think every police officer is that way or trained that way, but it's far more common than one would hope. On the other hand, it's put yourself in their position. Every time they walk up to a car, they don't know what's going on in that car. So it's a difficult spot. And I don't think that's any accident.
Let's change it though. Let's use another example. How about authority as in you walking into a county office, a public office? You're not really treated with respect. So there you're walking and you're not in a car. So I get it. Law enforcement, they need to be careful and so forth. But they're also treating us with a lot of disrespect.
Well, if I could sum up a bit, that when we became belligerents, enemy combatants, okay, what it did was give them the right, okay? They took away the rights of the citizens, okay? We're using that term loosely, of the people. And they said, now, because you're enemy, you must comply with you have no rights. What you have are benefits and privileges. And this is where you must license everything. You only have these benefits and privileges, but also you have all the legal stuff that now applies to you. Okay, not the rights applied by law, but the legal statutes and codes now apply to the enemy belligerents. Okay, and those same powers are invoked during times of war. Okay, and that's why we must be, they keep us at war because of how the enemy belligerents must be treated. So that's where there are, in law enforcement and all areas, there are so many good men and women who I think, have no comprehension of really how the system works and what they're actually doing or asking. But they just know that there are a lot of people that are ready to get in their face who may have more knowledge than they do, but don't know how to talk back and actually converse.
Gotcha. And then going back to the slide here on the under 1933, when it says, and all bankrupt entities underneath it, what do they mean with all, like, who are the all bankrupt entities underneath it?
I think you would be dealing there with like counties and so forth, all the various layers of government.
Gotcha.
I believe. Is that your understanding, Eliza?
Yes. And again, bankrupt because they took away the gold, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what are we dealing with now? We're dealing with paper backed by the people, but the government doesn't have anything. It's only the people that are now providing any value to the paper.
Then in Bretton Woods, the U.S. dollar was established as the global reserve currency. Now, you hear that word a lot, but basically what it comes down to is the U.S. won big time out of this because of our military superiority, right? Because remember, think through the timing of all this. 1933 was just shortly after 1929, so the Depression was there. They could use that to say, oh, that's why we got to go get all the gold from everybody, because we're in this Depression and we have to all work together. And they always do the patriotic thing, and wire people up to get them to think they're doing something wonderful for the government. And they do that with wars too, obviously, make everybody think, oh, yeah, we got to get out there and fight. And then,
you mean that they're doing something wonderful for the people?
That's what
they make us think.
That's what they want you to think. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that the people are doing something wonderful for ourselves by following and, holding up the flag and all that kind of stuff and calling yourself a patriot and all that, really, really well-meaning people get caught up in the fake stuff that the government's creating and think that it's real. And you got to respect them for their intent, the people's intent, but they usually don't know what's actually going on underneath the surface. I'll get tomatoes thrown at me for that one. But that's okay.
No, but we could go deep on that. And I know we only have so much time on all of these, but it's a big point.
Yeah. Now, the Bretton Woods had a whole lot to do with trade, right? Because the U.S. became the production center of the world, right? So we were making everything back then. And so everybody had to buy our stuff with U.S. dollars. So the whole world converted to using U.S. dollars. I mean, different countries had different currencies, but when they would buy stuff internationally, they had to have U.S. dollars in order to do those purchases. And then later on, I don't know if they get into it here or not, but later on, it became oil was the backing instead of gold. And Saudi Arabia made a pact with us to sell their oil only in U.S. dollars, which continued that process of the U.S. dollar being the reserve currency, not anymore because it was backed by gold, but because it was effectively backed by oil, because the whole world everybody has to buy energy, right? Energy is the base of everything. So energy.
And it wasn't backed by oil. It was backed by the fact that you had to use this,
right?
Unbacked paper,
right?
Okay,
the only
in order to get oil, so you're stuck. But what a power move that was! Once they took away that international ability to redeem gold, like you just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm confused though.
Okay.
If this agreement in 1944, right, pretty much establishes the dollar to be the global reserve. So to me, that means like powerful, right? The dollar is powerful. Everybody's using it. Everybody wants to use it.
And powerful,
or everybody has to use it.
Powerful is a good word, because the only reason they had to was because we were the defense mechanism militarily for the entire world.
Gotcha. So then my confusion becomes, if it was so powerful and everybody used it, how does that extend the U.S. bankruptcy worldwide? Like, to me, bankruptcy, like, it's a bad thing. That's not a good thing.
Yeah, except for the fact that those dollars weren't actually worth anything. They're only worth the perception, right? There was no real stuff, right? So if you create paper and you say, oh, that's worth a bunch. Well, if everybody buys it and says, oh, okay, yeah, that's worth a bunch, you can trade on perception. But there's no actual stuff supporting it. Does that make sense?
Bankruptcy system worldwide. So it was an illusion to the world that it was powerful.
That's
is what
the
you're
word.
saying?
Yeah, I mean, it was powerful, but it was only powerful because we had the military telling you, we got a gun against your head. This money's worth stuff. So,
yeah,
if you want us to keep the world from exploding and other countries from invading you, agree with us that this money has value. That's really, I mean, that's how I perceive it to have happened, basically.
And your question of extending the U.S. bankruptcy system worldwide, other countries saw that they didn't need to have gold holdings or an asset-backed currency anymore. Mm-hmm. Okay, they didn't have to have real money there. What they did, because this is the global currency, they just pegged whatever they were printing against the global reserve currency, which was the U.S. dollar. Okay, so therefore, that means every country is operating on a bankrupt system, an unbacked system.
Right.
Okay?
Because everything is a derivative. Everything worldwide is a derivative of the U.S. dollar, effectively. I mean, everything is calculated based on what's it worth compared to the dollar. But the dollar is worth nothing other than what you perceive it to be worth. And there's no literal value in that piece of paper. And now you don't even have pieces of paper. You just have electrons on a screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody wants dollars. That's the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's because of how we've created the perception worldwide. First, through military support, and second, through the need to purchase energy internationally. Now, that ended, though, was it 2 years ago? Where it was a 50-year agreement, and Saudi Arabia did not extend that agreement. So they're now selling in other currencies. And the BRIC system is coming in, which gives countries options to not need U.S. dollars. So far, there hasn't been a massive run on that, but there's definitely
because of trade wars and basically the strong arming in the trade arena. Mm-hmm. And for a while there, talk about slowly boiling the frog. We had poor frog should have a different slowly boiling the egg maybe, but we still had coinage that had value, and you saw little by little that used to be pure silver, pretty much pure silver, and little by little, any precious metal was then even taken out of the coinage, and even that's disappearing. And as you mentioned, even the paper's disappearing because of everything being digital. And they sell it under its convenience. And that's how so many of our rights are stripped away as we exchange, those rights for benefits and privileges. And a big piece of that is convenience now.
If countries were dependent on the dollar because everybody wanted it, are you saying countries were dependent because they needed the military protection as well? Mm-hmm. Is that the reason why they were dependent on the dollar?
Yeah. I mean, look at the map and look where all the U.S. military bases are all over the world. No other country has that. We've got military bases every place.
But importantly, it is the SWIFT system that was developed. In order to do international commerce, international exchange, you had to exchange through the SWIFT system. Now that's changing right now. But the SWIFT system, the deal was you had to go through the dollar first and then into the other currency. In other words, I wanted at the time, say Italian lira into French francs. You couldn't go to the lira to the franc. You had to go lira through the SWIFT system to the dollar to the franc. Okay, that meant the usage of dollars was mandatory. Mm-hmm. So you had to, the dollar controlled everything. It controlled world commerce.
Well, that breakdown you just did sounds like crypto today. Because you have to go through like different...
Well, crypto is changing a lot of that. And actually it's the crypto is, for those participating there, is giving the ability to circumvent that.
DeFi.
Which is interesting.
But as long as it's not on a centralized public chain.
Which is public, still not going through the dollar, but at least, you do want to, if you're going there, you do want to do it on a DeFi, which is more private for now.
Yeah, for now.
Who knows with the stablecoin and all that of how things are being looked at. But very importantly.
Okay, so then lastly, on this slide, the dollar really has not had any value since the backing of the gold was removed.
Yeah, because no longer could you walk into a bank and say, hand me something real for this piece of paper.
Yet it has been the global reserve, and everybody wants dollars and everybody depended on dollars. Mm-hmm. And since, and then it was backed by oil. And now that agreement is not renewed, this is the reason why the value of the dollar is pretty much gone.
Well, it's actually the strongest currency around still, in comparison to other currencies, right? All currencies are worthless. The dollar is just less worthless than the rest of them.
There you go.
Does that make sense?
Yes, because everybody at one point wanted the dollar.
Yeah, all currencies are just made up things that people agree to a value system based on it, but there's no actual thing supporting it. It's a belief system is really what it comes down to. And as long as everybody stays in the same belief system, it works. Right?
Or is forced into it in order to participate in commerce. Like the dollar was never backed by oil. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a reserve backing it. Right. It was required in order to transact for oil.
Yeah.
So you're stuck.
Now, when there was a real live gold standard, it was literally backed by gold. In other words, you could walk into the bank and say, I'm going to hand you this piece of paper and you're going to give me my gold back, right? But that was like before 33, right?
Mm-hmm. You guys see that
before
happening?
71 for international commerce.
71 was the international side of it, yeah.
Right. So it was, again, slowly boiling the egg. Yep. Okay, you take it away from this group and then eventually...
Do you guys see us going back? I know we're going through a timeline here, but I'm just like, gold is so like talked about right now. Do you guys see us going back to that?
Boy, the options are multitude. There's just no way to know what's going to happen. I mean, crypto is putting a whole kink in things, but I think the reason for that and the reason the government had fought Bitcoin for quite a while, and now, or crypto in general, and now are embracing it, is because Saudi Arabia didn't sign that agreement, didn't renew that agreement, and so we don't have the torsion on the system that we used to have. The dollar hasn't dramatically dropped, but the BRICS countries are buying gold in their central banks to back their currencies. And so it's going to be harder for the dollar to maintain that perceptual value now that it doesn't have
unless somehow we can create a system where people around the world are incentivized to hold dollars,
Mm-hmm.
to have dollars.
Like,
now, there are
like
two
having
things that,
lots of wars.
yeah. Well, number one is that this stable coin that is based upon being backed by U.S. Treasuries.
Right.
Okay, that's one. But the other thing is that, what is it, like 77% of all of the U.S. dollars that have never been canceled, were the only currency that has never been canceled ever in history, that those are held and have value throughout the world.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a couple factors there that are helping the ground to be held, but these are acts of they're strategic, but they are acts of desperation, I think, that will come forward to hold the reserve status.
The as a caveat to what you just said about we're the only ones that hasn't been canceled, well, we're also not very old, right? So
yeah, we're only a couple, but importantly in modern history, we'll say,
right,
because most, even whether it's the UK, they'll introduce a new bill and say, look, a new 20-pound bill. Mm-hmm. All the other 20-pound bills must be turned in. You have 2 years to turn theirs in, and then they are no longer spendable.
Right.
Well, the U.S. hasn't done that, but it's part of it. That's a strategic move by the U.S. to do that. Otherwise, you cancel that value. There's a lot at stake. But I think it's going to be interesting of how, with the new digital systems, blockchain primarily, how it's going to be really interesting of what's coming up. We could spend hours on this topic as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, the fiat, non-asset backed theoretic money, currency, really, not money. I mean, using real money like gold and silver is basically barter. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, except for it's a way to, you don't have to have the thing that I want. If you're bartering and you've only got 2 people involved, I have to want the thing that you want, and you have to want the thing that I want in order to make that barter work, right? So all kinds of systems can be developed to do different forms of bartering where you get 3 people involved, and I want the thing you have, and you want the thing that person has. You don't want the thing I want, but we can do a round robin basically and barter. Gold and silver were a way to have that intermediary where everybody could use the gold or silver. But the fiat money became much easier because, number one, you didn't have to carry the gold and silver around with you and worry about somebody knocking you on the noggin to get your gold and silver. And the quantities are easier to deal with bills because you've got 1s, you've got 5s, you've got 10s, and so forth. So it's easier to exchange that when you don't have things of equal value. Whereas if it's gold and silver, I mean, there's limited ways that can be broken down, basically. So I think the value of gold and silver are going to continue to rise. I mean, they've massively risen this year. And that was a poor wording that I just used because the value of the thing did not increase. The price of the thing in dollars increased, which means the value of the dollar went down. The purchasing power of the dollar went down in relationship to the thing that actually has value.
Yeah.
So, our whole, you have to understand derivatives to know how our whole system is built around derivatives, which means you're not buying and selling or trading in a thing. You're trading in a representation of the thing, which I'm not going to get into that. But basically, our whole system is built on derivatives because you can leverage them and control massive amounts of potential earnings or losses depending on which direction things go, because you don't have to own the thing to control the amount of gain or loss that you can participate in. And banks do that a lot, which means they make massive returns when they're right. But boy, if they're wrong, they can lose lots. And they've spent a lot of money keeping the dollar price of silver and gold down, and they've got a lot invested in that staying down. And it does look like they're beginning to lose control of that, which means, boy, if it pops way up, they lose massive amounts on those derivative contracts that they have, and it could take banks down. And then there's going to have to be some form of, now what do we do once the banks are not there anymore?
I'm going to use that. There's got to be some form of, now what do we do? That's going to be my new saying. Here's some now what do we do? Because that's not working.
Yeah. Well, and then, I mean, once people realize the amount of fraud in the system, who's going to believe anything? I mean, you're already seeing on the news now, I mean, not everybody. Obviously, there's a lot of people that just aren't paying attention. But there's way more questioning now than there was even 4 or 5 years ago. When the government says something, when the FBI says something or whatever, there's a massive kickback of, we're going to go check that out and see if that's real or not. And there's so much stuff that doesn't make any sense, that then when the financial system goes through that too, which we've already been through it a few times, but people just want to trust the system, right? Even within the 2008 debacle, people still kind of trusted the system. But I think there's going to come a time when that faith, because that's all it is, just a religious faith, will dissipate, and something's going to have to happen because there's no actual support behind what we're presenting as valuable stuff.
I just feel like they're like holding onto it because it's long overdue that the financial system should have already, we'll call it collapsed, or the impact that we're
and without the war, without the wars and stuff, I think we would have already been there. Right. But they have to create those emergencies and so forth in order to roll things forward and use all this money and make it necessary and so forth.
I would even think, like, when you think about a financial system being in so much trouble, and then now war comes, you have to put a lot of money into it, you would think, at least I would think, that's going to get us more in trouble, but it actually helps the system to stay in place.
That's if you were using real money, but all they do is just print it. Right. Yeah. And now they don't even have to use the paper. They just put digits on a screen. Right. Which means every dollar that you have in your pocket is worth less because now there's more chasing the same goods. Right.
It's called leverage. It's leverage. It's, I will fund your war so you at the top can make lots of money. Heck with the people. Yep. Okay. So it's a leverage game.
Yeah. No, it's not that not that the wars make you and I money.
No, I said the people. It's not for the people. Yeah, I know. That's why I was clear when I said that.
Yeah. Raina Stella was I was going back to what she said with the clarification that you made, because that was a perfect clarification. Yeah. It's not we the people that benefit from the money printing in wars. It's the hotshots that do, because the value of their physical assets. I mean, the dollars value of their physical assets, because they own real estate and land and all kinds of things like that, right? And those values in relationship to dollars go way, way, way up. So they benefit like crazy when the money is printed. And they invest in the stocks of the companies that benefit from the wars and the rebuilding, like you were saying, Eliza. So it all depends on what level you're at. Are you the hot shots that own everything, or are you the normal people that are working day to day to make a living? Okay, we better get to the next one. 66.
Wow, up to 66. We're not seeing 71 here, but we can. Okay, 1966. Revised Federal Lien Registration Act. places all elements of taxation and monetary issue under the Uniform Commercial Code. In 2003, the Perpetual War on Terror begins establishing the theater of security conditioning, the theater of security, conditioning the collective consciousness that security is preferable to freedom, marking a new phase in global control and bondage.
This is, they're referring to the 9/11, right? Because we're talking, it says 2003, but referring to that, right?
Yeah. And the Patriot Act that was massive and already written and ready before 9/11 even happened, ready to be popped out to the world when they got scared.
And the Uniform Commercial Code is, look at that. This takes a bit of study for people not familiar with it, but how that the system has placed liens over everything. Basically, first ownership priority. And unless, say, we know enough and can come forward to say, no, I have the primary claim, the highest claim over this, not you. What anyone else's claim stands as law after a time. But this Uniform Commercial Code is basically in some way a global thing, United Nations related thing. Yeah.
Yeah, United Nations. I mean, there's so many different dates we could pop in here with all kinds of other things. Like you said, 71 was a really big deal. 74 was a really big deal. 63 was a really big deal because of the 63, 64 when the silver kind of lost its 100% use in coinage. There's so many different components that went down through this process in order to make the people feel like they were getting more, but in reality decreasing the lifestyle, basically.
I mean, would you say that the majority of us, right after the 2001 event of 9/11, that we were aware that we were giving up, I guess, more freedom for security? I don't think, to me, looking back, that was clear as it was being done. Again, awareness and so forth. I wasn't into this material before, but regardless, just as an average American, an average living person, I don't think it was very clear that that's what we were giving up. And again, it's an intentional act that possibly took place to take that from us.
Yeah, no, they did a very good job of smokescreen to scare people to death. Now, I lived through that one, right? The earlier ones, 1500s, I wasn't around, but I lived big time through that one. So, to me, it was real clear what was going on. Now, I didn't know. I questioned the story of what they were presenting, but I knew that what was happening was for the purpose of getting us to give up freedoms that we would not have otherwise agreed to. And all the stupidity of, taking off your shoes and to get on an airplane and all that craziness was just like going through the COVID baloney, where, most of us knew that was baloney to begin with, but there was a good quantity of people that were scared to death.
And are still.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was pretty much, as they were adding additional surveillance on us, and more security measures.
Yeah.
It was a new, I don't want to say cycle, maybe a new stage, right?
And
control.
And that was a perfect example of the 3 steps forward and 1 step back. And then everybody got very comfortable and we're nowhere close to having the freedoms that we had before, but people don't realize that.
But that event was 3 steps forward.
Oh, it was
never did they have to take back any steps, right?
Well,
because of how.
Yeah, I mean, they've backed
crazy it
down
was.
on some of that stuff with like getting on airplanes and stuff. It's not as bad as it was for a period of time. But it's never come back to what it was before that by any means.
Yeah, but that's just recently that they removed some, like you no longer have to take your shoes off. That's like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It took a while.
Yeah.
But I think what the 3 steps forward are the scare tactic, but during that they could continue to have this war on terror, looks like war on drugs, war on terror, to decrease our rights, and then increase censorship, increase the amount of propaganda and indoctrination, and make sure that anything that is opposing it in the name of the war on terror is shut down. Okay, any freedom of speech, etc. You look how far they are using these types of things and they did through. Maybe we'll get to it, the Patriot Act and other things. So, and then COVID came, censorship. So the only message that the masses are hearing is the one that, I call it indoctrination, that we are supposed to be hearing. And that's really hard to break through. And I think some of it's reverting right now, only because it's gone too far. So this is where the people speak up. But that's the 3 step forward, 1 step back.
Right.
Wow. It amazes me how well they've performed in such a, I guess you can call it in such a, I'll say short period of time, but I think it's taken even previous to the timeline we started. It just amazes me how perfected it is that we don't realize that this is their game, that this is how they roll and continue to, make sure that we are under control and that I don't know, their way of hiding it and not exposing it, though I think we're getting to the point where it is being exposed, like you said earlier, a lot more than previously. But what I'm saying is it amazes me how they've played us.
And this is
Crazy.
all just talking primarily, I mean, other than the real early ones, this is all just talking about the U.S. But the whole thing, the whole drama occurs on what they call the world stage. And the actors on the world stage are all playing games together. It's all WWE. Was it WWE wrestling? Is that the right designation?
Yeah, the WWE.
It's all a big show, right? I mean, when I was a kid back in the late 60s, wrestling was a great big thing, man. And we all thought it was real. It wasn't until later on that.
Yeah, it was WWF back then. I think they had to change it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, at some point you finally realized, holy smokes, this is all this screaming and hollering and how mean they are to each other and stuff. They're going, slapping each other on the back and having a beer afterwards. But they put a great show on for you. And the entertainment is all it is, right? Well, that's the same thing happening on the world stage with these leaders that all act like they're fighting for their own country's benefit. They're not. They've got buddies patting each other on the back after
the world's a stage
after the show. Well, and you saw that during the COVID thing. I mean, where they would have a camera that got turned on a little bit too fast, and then somebody would say, "Okay, now we got to all put on our masks." I mean,
exactly.
You talk about a show.
the fake jab. You saw we keep hearing the term, this is a huge psyop, but there are 3 basically in a little stool of control, a little step stool. You have legal, okay, which are all the laws, not laws, but the legal stuff that says you have to do this or you can't do that. There's the financial that we've discussed here. There's the financial control, but then there's the media, which is telling you how to interpret, what to think, what not to think. Don't look this way, but look this way. Those three things are the combination that is used by the world powers to control people and have throughout time. That has never changed.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, because and the internet in its early days threatened that before they managed to get it under control with censorship. The internet threatened that whole concept because people could actually say things out loud and make other people think. And that had not been available before. I mean, when I was a kid, we had 3 stations. You know, it was a big deal when UHF came around and we had a local, thing that we could watch UHF. Otherwise, it was just the 3 stations. And they were all saying the same thing.
Yeah, same script.
Same script. I mean, now there's a whole bunch of stations, but they were all playing the same script.
I know. Okay.
Word for word, playing the same script.
Yeah.
Word for word.
But they fake you out to think you have choice, right? They always give you two theoretic sides so that everybody can battle each other. Again, WWF or WWE wrestling, that's all it is, a big show so that you think, oh, my team's going to take down the bad guy over there, right? So that we continue to fight each other instead of understanding that it's the controller up the top that's controlling both sides.
The last thing they are worried about is our well-being.
Oh, that is for sure. But they'll word everything to where it sounds like it's all for you.
My goodness.
We're watching out for you.
The great thing is, we're heading toward in these podcasts and with this book that we're setting a stage of, look, here's what's going on, just so that we can then talk about solutions at the end. Mm-hmm. So hang in there. But this part is important. So you understand, what is it said? If you don't understand history, you're destined to repeat it.
Yep.
So
I have really, really enjoyed everything we read today, though we stopped in 2003 and we touched on things a little bit after 2003, but now I understand why it's so important that we get this timeline and that we understand the concept, because it's very brief. Mm-hmm. If we go into the material of that actual event for each of the timelines listed here, we will get the full story and really start to understand why we are where we are, and how beneficial it is to understand that history to be able to move forward with what it is also what it is we are doing. So I get it now. Initially, at the beginning of this timeline, I asked, why is it so important? I get it now.
Yeah.
And I thank you guys.
Because the controllers understand human psychology, and human psychology doesn't change. So the same playbook can be played over and over and over and over again, and people will fall for it every time. So unless you look back and watch those cycles progress, you don't recognize it when you're in the middle of a cycle. But if you can pull back and look at the larger picture and see the progression that got you to where you are right now, you're less likely to be funneled into just what's happening right now. And you're going to recognize, oh, they're doing it again.
Forest for the trees.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Hey, I thought this was going to be a boring read, really, but this turned out to be pretty fun.
Yeah,
I loved it.
It was.
Good.
Learned a lot.
All right. I think we're ready to close out for this episode. We're on 18 here. So, I forget what's coming up next time, but it'll be fun.
It sure will.
Thank you.
I've really enjoyed it tonight, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So have I. All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Rena, Stella, Ken. Bye-bye. Love you.
Bye. Love you guys.
Same. The views expressed in this Liberty Ark podcast are for informational and educational purposes only. They do not constitute legal or tax advice, and they may not reflect the official positions of anyone at all, really. We want to express our appreciation to the authors of the unpublished manuscript titled The Great International Heist. on which the Liberty Ark Podcast is based. Rebecca and Jonathan Rodrigues, the authors, provide courses that go into much greater depth and are available at libertyarkpodcast.com/White Rabbit.